The story begins on a cool autumn afternoon in the hills of rural Kentucky. The sky was already sliding toward that pale gold dusk where shadows stretched long across the cracked asphalt of a two-lane road. Four friends, Evan, Jess, Mark, and Leah, were on their way to a weekend camping trip. They had planned it for weeks, a remote ridge that promised spectacular views, no cell service, and no other hikers for miles. A true escape from the noise of their daily lives. They laughed and teased each other in the car, the kind of easy road trip chatter that masks the thrill of being somewhere unknown. By the time they stopped at the only gas station for miles, the sun was half gone. The place looked old, with a squeaky sign dangling above the pumps and a cluttered front porch lined with stacked wood and dusty rocking chairs. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed faintly. The clerk behind the counter was an older man with tired eyes and a jaw set like stone. He looked them over as they grabbed snacks and water for the hike. Jess, cheerful as always, tried to make small talk. "Hey, we're heading up near Laramie Ridge. You got a lot of campers heading that way?" The man's expression barely shifted. He set down a bag of chips she was paying for, leaned forward, and said in a slow, gravelly tone, "You all camping on the ridge tonight?" Mark smirked. "That's the plan." The clerk shook his head. "Best be careful. Folks around here don't go near that ridge after dark. If you see lantern lights, you keep your heads down. Don't follow. Don't call out." Leah laughed nervously. "Lantern lights? Like ghost stories?" The man didn't laugh. He didn't blink. "Ain't no story. Lights out there don't belong to people." The friends exchanged glances, stifling grins the way outsiders always do when they're told a local legend. Evan, the one who always liked pushing buttons, leaned against the counter. "What happens if we do follow the lights?" he teased. The old man's face turned grim. "Then you won't be coming back down." No one said anything after that. The clerk handed them their things and they shuffled out awkwardly. But once outside, they burst into laughter. "Classic," Mark said. "Every small town's got their campfire tale." "Yeah, next he'll tell us Bigfoot's up there too," Leah added. Still, the words lingered. The silence in the car afterward was heavier than it should have been. By the time they reached the trailhead, night was creeping in fast. The woods stretched out before them, dark and endless, the ridge just a shadow on the horizon. Jess adjusted her pack and tried to lighten the mood. "Come on, guys, it's just some old man trying to scare tourists. Let's make it to camp before we spook ourselves out." But as they hiked deeper into the woods, the last light fading behind the trees, Evan thought he saw a pale glow flicker far away on the ridgeline. He blinked, shook his head, and told himself it was nothing. By the time the group reached the clearing at the ridge's base, the last sliver of sun had bled out of the sky. The world had gone cold and dim in that sudden way mountain forests do, where twilight seems to last only minutes before full night. They set up their tents quickly, fumbling with stakes and tarps in the glow of headlamps. The air smelled of damp pine and earth, and every sound, the crack of a branch, the far-off hoot of an owl, seemed amplified. By the time a fire was coaxed to life, crackling and spitting, they'd shaken off some of their unease. Mark skewered hot dogs on sticks, Leah unwrapped foil packets of marshmallows, and soon they were laughing again, flames throwing long shadows across the trees. But as the fire settled into glowing coals, Evan froze. He sat upright, eyes locked on the ridge line beyond the treetops. Guys?" he whispered. The others followed his gaze. There, moving between the dark pines just below the crest of the ridge, was a soft, steady light. At first it looked like a lone hiker with a lantern. The glow swayed slightly, bobbing as though carried by hand. Jess exhaled in relief. "Oh, thank God! For a second I thought, she laughed nervously. Guess we're not the only campers out here. But then a second light appeared, and a third. Each moved in the same rhythmic bobbing motion, all in perfect unison, as though a line of people were walking side by side. Leah frowned. That's weird, right? Shouldn't we see beams if those are flashlights? Evan shook his head slowly. He'd been staring hard. They're not flashlights. Too warm, too steady. They look like... He trailed off, and they all thought the same thing. Lanterns. The old man's warning whispered in the back of their minds. Mark forced a laugh. Probably a night hike group. People do lantern walks, right? Historical reenactments and crap? But as if in answer, the lights stopped moving. Every single one. They hung there, suspended on the ridge, perfectly still. The group went quiet. The only sound was the hiss of the fire. Then, grinning recklessly, Evan cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, "Hey! Nice lanterns!" The lights reacted immediately. As one, they turned. No bodies were visible, only the glow, but the sense was unmistakable. They were looking directly at the campers. The fire popped violently, startling everyone. Jess grabbed Evan's sleeve. Don't mess with that, Ev." But he just smirked. "What? They're just people." Minutes dragged by. The lights remained fixed on the clearing, silent and watching. Finally, Leah whispered, "Why aren't they moving?" No one answered. Then, so faint they almost missed it, a sound drifted through the trees. A low, drawn-out whisper, carrying across the night air. It wasn't words exactly, more like syllables stretched too far, just out of reach of meaning. Jess's eyes went wide. "Did you hear that?" The lights pulsed, brightening, dimming, as though breathing. Mark stood abruptly, tossing his stick into the fire. "Screw this, I'm going to bed, not sitting out here while you guys creep yourselves out over fireflies." One by one, they retreated to their tents, though none of them slept easily. Outside, the fire crackled low, and in the distance, the lanterns remained, silent, unmoving, until long past midnight. But when Evan peeked out one last time, he realized something that froze him to the bone. The lights weren't on the ridge anymore. They were closer. The forest was different the next morning. It wasn't just the way the mist clung to the trees or how the ridge seemed to loom heavier in the daylight. It was the silence. Not one bird sang. No bugs droned. It was as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. They joked about it over breakfast, trying to push away the unease. Jess claimed she hadn't heard a thing after crawling into her tent. Mark grumbled about waking with every twig snap outside. Evan, however, smirked as he poured coffee from his tin cup. "Come on, admit it, that was creepy as hell. But it's just locals screwing with us. Lanterns on sticks, whispering through the trees, easy." No one argued, but no one believed it either. By dusk, the forest had gone unnervingly still again. They tried to laugh louder, to tell more jokes around the fire, but the shadows pressed in thicker tonight, as if the tree line had crept closer. Then, just like the night before, it started. A faint amber glow appeared on the ridge. One light, then another, then three more in a line, swaying in unison. Leah whispered, No, not again." The lights moved forward, down the ridge this time, toward their camp. They bobbed slowly, rhythmically, impossibly smooth, as though floating instead of carried. Mark stood, anger bubbling over his fear. "That's it. I'm done. I'm going up there and proving this is just some idiot locals messing with us." "Don't," Jess said quickly, grabbing his arm. "Don't go near them." But Mark shook her off and took a step toward the tree line. That was when they heard it. A voice. Clear, soft, calling his name. "Mark." It drifted through the trees, delicate and close, though the glow of the lanterns was still 100 yards away. Mark froze. "Jess?" He looked back at her, but she was right there, staring at him in horror. Then Leah gasped. It just said your name." Evan laughed nervously, but the sound broke quickly. "Okay, yeah, that's new." The lights swayed again, closer now, as if pulled towards their fear. "Mark." The voice came again, softer, coaxing. It was unmistakably female this time, gentle, almost loving. Mark's jaw clenched, his breath quickened. He took another step toward the forest, eyes fixed on the glow. Jess grabbed him, panic cutting through her voice. "Don't listen to it, it's not real." But the voice wasn't done. It changed. This time, it wasn't soft. It was broken, desperate. "Help me. Mark, please. It's so dark." His face went pale. It sounded exactly like his sister, the one who had died in a car accident 2 years ago. Everyone else knew it wasn't possible, but Mark wanted to believe. He wrenched his arm away and stumbled into the dark. "Mark, stop!" Leah screamed. She darted after him, but Evan yanked her back. "Don't! That's what it wants!" The lights flickered, shifting position. 2 slid wide to the left, 2 more to the right, circling. Jess's voice shook. "They're surrounding us." And as if to confirm it, the fire between them sputtered, sparks dying low. The air grew thick with a damp, cold weight. From all sides came the faint crunch of footsteps. Dozens of them. But when they looked, they saw no figures, only lanterns swaying silently between the trees, edging closer with every breath. The woods swallowed Mark within seconds. His flashlight beam jittered wildly between the trees before vanishing into the dark. "Mark!" Jess screamed, but her voice cracked. The sound seemed to get eaten by the forest. Only the cold whisper of lantern light replied, soft voices sliding through the trees, rising and falling in a dozen overlapping tones. "Help me, Mark! Over here! Don't leave me!" The 3 remaining campers huddled by the dying fire. The lanterns had drawn closer now, circling in a wide ring around the clearing. At first there had been 5. Now there were at least a dozen, swaying silently, equidistant, hemming them in. Leah clutched her knees to her chest. "They're closing us in! Oh God, they're closing us in!" Evan's bravado was gone. His voice was tight, whispering like he thought speaking louder would draw the lights closer. Okay, no more games. We grab the tents, grab the packs, and we're gone. We'll hike straight back to the car." Jess shook her head violently. "We can't leave Mark!" And then, as if to answer her, a scream tore through the night. Mark's scream. It wasn't distant. It came from just beyond the ring of lanterns. High-pitched, desperate, cut short in a ragged choke. Then, silence. The lanterns pulsed once, bright, then dim again. Leah's sob broke the stillness. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out and she collapsed back into the dirt. We can't leave him out there." The voices rose again, but now they were different, mocking, echoing. "Jess, Leah, Evan." Each name stretched out, curling around them like smoke. The tones shifted constantly, sometimes low, sometimes familiar, sometimes too shrill, like a recording slowed and sped at random. The fire sputtered into embers, their last real light fading. Beyond the circle, the lanterns swayed. Closer. Something moved between the trees. Jess caught it first, just for an instant. A silhouette, a figure holding one of the lights. But its arm was wrong, too long, bending at an angle no shoulder could. Its head cocked to the side as though listening, though there was no sound except the voices that were now whispering in perfect imitation of Mark. "Jess, don't leave me. I'm here." Her whole body shook. She pressed a hand to her mouth to keep from screaming. Evan grabbed her wrist and hissed, "That's not him. That's not Mark." The lanterns drew in tighter, the circle shrinking, until the glowing orbs bobbed only 20, maybe 30 feet away. Each swayed as if held, but the shadows behind them never revealed who or what carried them. Leah whispered, tears streaking down her face. "We're not getting out of this, are we?" Then suddenly, one lantern winked out, then another, and another, until the ridgeline went black. For a heartbeat, the clearing was silent, empty, smothered in darkness. Then came the sound of running feet, dozens of them, closing in from every direction. The woods swallowed Mark within seconds. His flashlight beam jittered wildly between the trees before vanishing into the dark. "Mark!" Jess screamed, but her voice cracked. The sound seemed to get eaten by the forest. Only the cold whisper of lantern light replied, soft voices sliding through the trees, rising and falling in a dozen overlapping tones. "Help me, Mark. Over here. Don't leave me." The three remaining campers huddled by the dying fire. The lanterns had drawn closer now, circling in a wide ring around the clearing. At first there had been 5, now there were at least a dozen, swaying silently, equidistant, hemming them in. Leah clutched her knees to her chest. "They're closing us in. Oh God, they're closing us in." Evan's bravado was gone. His voice was tight, whispering like he thought speaking louder would draw the lights closer. Okay, no more games. We grab the tents, grab the packs, and we're gone. We'll hike straight back to the car." Jess shook her head violently. "We can't leave Mark." And then, as if to answer her, a scream tore through the night. Mark's scream. It wasn't distant. It came from just beyond the ring of lanterns. High-pitched, desperate, cut short in a ragged choke. Then, silence. The lanterns pulsed once, bright, then dim again. Leah's sob broke the stillness. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out and she collapsed back into the dirt. We can't leave him out there." The voices rose again, but now they were different, mocking, echoing. "Jess, Leah, Yvonne." Each name stretched out, curling around them like smoke. The tones shifted constantly, sometimes low, sometimes familiar, sometimes too shrill, like a recording slowed and sped at random. The fire sputtered into embers, their last real light fading. Beyond the circle, the lanterns swayed. Closer. Something moved between the trees. Jess caught it first, just for an instant, a silhouette, a figure holding one of the lights. But its arm was wrong. Too long, bending at an angle no shoulder could. Its head cocked to the side as though listening, though there was no sound except the voices that were now whispering in perfect imitation of Mark. "Jess, don't leave me. I'm here." Her whole body shook. She pressed a hand to her mouth to keep from screaming. Evan grabbed her wrist and hissed, "That's not him. That's not Mark." The lanterns drew in tighter, the circle shrinking until the glowing orbs bobbed only 20, maybe 30 feet away. Each swayed as if held, but the shadows behind them never revealed who or what carried them. Leah whispered, tears streaking down her face. "We're not getting out of this, are we?" Then suddenly one lantern winked out, then another, and another, until the ridgeline went black. For a heartbeat, the clearing was silent, empty, smothered in darkness. Then came the sound of running feet, dozens of them, closing in from every direction. The clearing erupted in chaos. The sound of running feet thundered through the dark, but when Evan swung his flashlight, the beam caught only trees, empty trunks, and the sickly sway of lantern glow. Yet the footsteps circled closer and closer, an invisible mob pressing in on them. Leah screamed. Jess grabbed her hand and yanked her toward the trail. "Run!" They bolted, the fire abandoned, the half-collapsed tents left behind. Their boots pounded the dirt path, branches clawing at their arms and faces. The lanterns reappeared ahead of them, bobbing smoothly down the trail as if blocking their escape. Evan cursed, veering off into the underbrush. "This way!" They crashed through brush, stumbling over roots. Behind them, the voices rose in a deafening chorus. Mark's voice, Evan's voice, even Jess's voice, all overlapping, echoing through the trees. "Leah, wait for me! Jess, don't run! Evan, over here!" Every voice sounded so close it made their skin crawl, like their doubles were just a few feet behind. Then, through the dark, Jess saw something that made her blood run cold. A lantern swayed ahead, but this time she saw who held it. It was Mark. He stood at the edge of the trail, pale, eyes glassy and wrong. His movements were stiff, unnatural, like a puppet tugged on strings. The lantern glowed from within his chest, ribs glowing faintly through his shirt as if he'd been hollowed out and filled with light. Jess froze, choking on a sob. "Mark?" The thing wearing him tilted its head, the lantern glow flaring brighter. Then its jaw unhinged wider than a human mouth should, and from inside came a chorus of whispers, dozens of voices overlapping. Leah screamed and shoved Jess forward. "Don't look at it!" They ran. The woods seemed endless, the trail looping back on itself. Every direction they turned, the lanterns were already there, waiting, swaying gently like predators too patient to pounce. Their breaths came ragged. Evan stumbled, falling to his knees. Jess and Leah pulled at him, but the ground shook with footsteps all around. Lanterns closed in, 10, 20, 30 of them, glowing through the trees like a wall of fireflies. The voices merged into one, deep and resonant, vibrating through the earth itself. "Stay with us!" Evan's scream tore through the night as the lanterns engulfed him. For one terrible second, Jess saw his body outlined in orange glow, then it winked out, like a candle snuffed in the dark. Only Jess and Leah remained. They sprinted blindly, tears streaking their faces, lungs burning. The voices chased them, the lights circling, closer with every step. At last, ahead through the trees, Jess saw something, moonlight glinting off metal. The trailhead sign, the parking lot. "Leah! The car! Where—" She turned. Leah was gone. In her place, just behind her, a lantern swayed. Inside it, Jess swore she saw Leah's wide, terrified eyes staring back. Her scream split the forest as she stumbled toward the car. She fumbled with the keys, hands shaking too violently to fit them into the lock. The lanterns ringed the lot now, dozens of them, their glow painting the trees in sick amber light. Finally, the door clicked. She flung herself inside, locked it, and curled into the driver's seat. Through the windshield, the ridge burned with lantern fire. An army of glowing lights, swaying in perfect unison, waiting. Then, slowly, one by one, they winked out, until the forest was dark again. Jess's sobs filled the silence. But just before she turned the key in the ignition, she heard it, clear, soft, right outside her window. Her own voice. "Jess, don't leave me!" If you ever find yourself camping deep in the Appalachian woods, and you see lanterns moving across the ridge at night, remember the warning. Don't follow. Don't call out. And whatever you do, don't let them say your name. Thank you for listening to tonight's story. If you enjoyed it, please help keep the fire burning. Leave a like, share this with a friend, and subscribe for more tales from the dark. Every single action means more than you know, especially for a growing channel like this one. And if you hear your name called in the dark, don't answer.